This week's video is for writers, authors, and specifically crime writers and mystery writers, as opposed to my normal videos, which are for investigators and people in the security and investigations field. That's because I'm announcing the release of the Writer's Guide to FBI Legal Procedures. I was privileged enough to be the editor on this book. It's very exciting because it solves problems for writers, crime writers, mystery writers. If you're an author, and I am an author many times over, an Amazon #1 best-selling author a couple of times over, but it's in nonfiction, which is, to me, I feel, super easy compared to writing fiction. What you do as a fiction writer, much more difficult. So there are problems that you encounter, obviously, when you're writing fiction. So the plot might get stuck, or a character might need something to move forward or to develop. And I'll give you a couple of examples here where the Writer's Guide to FBI Legal Procedures can help you, because this isn't a law book. It's the real procedures. It's the real world stuff that adds realism to your story, to your book. But it's not designed as a legal guide. I'm not an attorney. It's designed for writers to solve problems. So, for example, your protagonist, the hero of your story, if this is a special agent with the FBI, a government agent, even police detective, you're going to learn so much here. There's a tendency for people who are outside of security and investigations to think that these men and women, these FBI agents, just wield all of this power and authority. How do you balance that out in your book? How do you keep that person from just overpowering and plowing their way to the solution? Well, when you have a behind-the-scenes look like the Writer's Guide to FBI Legal Procedures gives you, you begin to realize if you want to add things like this to your story, elements of what is really needed for a search warrant. What do you need for an arrest warrant? Do they expire? If you want to give a ticking clock to your story, where there's this pressure for the good guys to proceed. I'll give you a little hint now right out of the book that search warrants do expire, but arrest warrants don't expire. There's a little something right there. So if you're a protagonist, if the cop, the detective, the FBI agent has gotten a search warrant, boom, the clock is ticking that he or she can serve this warrant. On the other hand, if your antagonist, if the bad guy in your story seems to have all the advantages, or is too strong of a character, then the Writer's Guide to FBI Legal Procedures can show you some behind-the-scenes things that might catch a bad guy off guard. For example, there are John Doe arrest warrants out there, John Doe and Jane Doe arrest warrants. Matter of fact, in real life, step aside now from me as the editor of this book into the security and investigations field, literally in the last 48 hours, I came upon somebody in my local county lockup, and she was arrested and booked as Jane Doe because they just didn't know who she was. But they've got a booking number, they've got her in custody, they got the mugshot, they got the fingerprints, they'll figure it all out. But let's step back into you as an author now. Your bad guy thinks he's invincible, or maybe he hasn't calculated on the fact that the FBI can get, and local law enforcement too, John Doe warrants, Jane Doe warrants. They don't need to know the name of the suspect. Now, what does that sound like? Again, in the Writer's Guide, you're going to find examples of how they present evidence to a judge and what they have to establish in order to get an arrest warrant when they don't know the name of the subject. And there's just all sorts of interesting things like that in there. It covers elements of diplomatic immunity and overseas arrest. What if your protagonist, this FBI agent or any kind of federal agent, I mean, it's fiction, you can kind of massage this as much as you want, goes overseas and has to make an arrest. Who do they liaison with? What authority do they have? How about just here in the U.S.? I mean, a federal agent, they may feel like they have all this authority, but the reality is they're enforcing laws, federal laws. So when they come into a state, are they going to be able to make an arrest for a state law violation or a municipal law? Here's a spoiler alert. They're not going to be arresting somebody for shoplifting, for example, even though They're a federal agent with arrest authority, with the ability and authorization to carry a weapon, all these things. There's just so many interesting things. When you start to dig through this book, you get ideas and you get solutions. Very valuable. And what I want to do right now is show you a short trailer for that book that really, if you follow it, it gives you a lot of ideas and tells you things that are in the book that are going to be able to help with character development, plot development, furthering things along. Enjoy.